Okay, well, we now have built a harness. I didn't film this part because I think, quite frankly, it'd be quite boring for most people. But so this is the actual harness that I've just built that travels from the head unit to the amplifier and sub, and then back to the speaker. So that's your low pass from the head unit to the amplifier and sub, and then this one is a control wire. This is a remote wire, and these are the speaker returns. As I'm only putting two speakers in this vehicle, not four, because primarily there's no point putting them in the back seat. There's always going to be stuff and you won't hear it. I've actually reduced that just to 4 instead of having the usual 8. So that's going to be the return back to the system. So all of this is built so they can actually go into the well between the door and the carpet. So there's a bit of a trough sort of that sits in there in these cruisers, and that's where that will sit. And by it all being in there like that, it's going to be protected from getting crushed as well. So that's the amplifier and sub. It's sitting on a composite board, so that's aluminium with a layer of polymer in the middle and aluminium again, over the top of some soundproofing. Reason being is although they vent it and all that and stuff, and they got some feet which allow a bit of distance underneath, they do get very warm. And personally, I would always recommend that it's well worth in the interest to do this properly and just make sure. So these are all the connections back here that I will now need to use. The power is going to be completely separate. I never run the power in the same harness, especially given the amount of power that this unit requires. I'm going to run a completely separate supplies. This is the harness, so now we're going to connect it. So we've got the speaker plugged in. This is the remote lead, and these are the RCAs. So we'll put the RCAs in here for your low pass. Speaker's already in. Now this has to go down here with the in the remote section there in the middle for it. So that's all good. And then this other one has to go at the front. So okay, so that's where we've made a little error here. We've just got to open that up again, which isn't too tragic. That's why I don't, unless they're exposed to the elements, I don't usually seal the ends of those by heat shrinking them. If this conduit was outside or outside the vehicle, then there's a fairly likely chance that I would have closed it off with heat shrink. So now that that's done, I can retrieve this cable, which is your remote cable, and pull it back sufficiently so you can now go into here. Okay, so that's now plugged into there. Now what we'll do is we'll separate those two. So I'll put the remote in there shortly, and then we'll run this entire harness across to here and then straight down through the carpet, under the carpet, all the way to the front of the vehicle. So let me just repair this, and this is where, unfortunately, it can get a bit tricky when you try and reverse feed. It's always easy to build these things outside of a car. So there we go. Alright, so that's all good now. So now we can focus on laying it in and also figuring out the power. Alright, so this is the harness that or the power supply they provide with a 30 amp fuse link, and it's just really important to understand that the reason they put the eyelet already on there for you, whether you use it or not, is regardless, is to ensure that that goes to the battery end. It's really important to have the fuse as close to the battery as possible. There's minimal chance of there being damage to this part, whereas opposed to all of this part, which may lie very well underneath the carpet. It's very easily get damaged. So remember, fuse link close to battery. Okay guys, so we've got the wiring loom now in, which runs in there. Unfortunately I wasn't able to show how it's done because it's very difficult to film that part. But it continues through here. It's all inside the conduit. Then it goes past here, through there, and then out into here. And that's where all your wires are coming out. So they all need to be connected to the amp. So now it's time to do the head unit. So we're all finished. The head unit is in. So as you can see, it plays a variety of different mediums for music, including the different apps that you can have. As far as the functions are concerned, they're basically pretty standardized from what you get with most of these sort of Android things. As far as your maps are concerned, they're your Android maps, which obviously does help. These Google Maps are fantastic for being able to see any delays in traffic, things like that. And then as far as other functionalities, it has got obviously radio, it's got the phone. Now my rear camera, that's been connected as the front camera, so you can see directly what's out the front of this forward drive. So this is literally directly down the edge of the bull bar. So everything within about 300 mil off the front of the car becomes visible. And that's a really good advantage, especially when you off-road with such a big vehicle. You've got your settings, you've got Android Auto, obviously, which is what we were just talking about then. You've got some shortcuts here and all that sort of stuff. We will go into the radio in a minute. You got some bass functions, so I've got it just turned down at the moment because we're just trying to see or try and actually show what the sound is. So we've got the subwoofer off and everything like that. So what we'll actually do is now I'll go back to the Android Auto. I will go back. Play a considerable amount of music, little snippets we might get away with because of copyright issues. But so this is how the head unit is fitted. As we said, it's all set up quite well. There's a little bit of space behind it. As I was saying, it's a single DIN, and we've got it blocked off back here, allowing for quite a bit of room with the cables. But it also allows us to tilt the screen forward and backwards. And then it gets secured and this cover gets put over it so it doesn't actually move, especially when you're off-road. On this side over here, this is where we've got our sub control. So this is actually the remote for the focal sub, and then